Hello, everyone. I am Joseph M. Lenard. And for starters, if you're seeing a raw version of this on video, of this audio-only podcast, because yes, I will be recording in video, but audio feeds mostly, you can see on the back of the screen, Joseph M. Lenard above my head in print. And yes, it's not French. It looks French. It looks like Lenard, but it's Joseph M. Lenard, Lenard without an O. And that's important to note because I will often be giving out my website, and you can always contact me through my website, josephmlenard.us. So now that we've got that out of the way, thank you for looking in on this podcast. I know you have tons and tons and tons. There's a bazillion podcast options out there. So thank you so much for peeking in on this one. I hope you'll join on a monthly basis to start. The first of each month. Going to start off very slow, very low key, very low cost, not putting the cart before the horse here, all right? It's just me and you, and frankly, via Zoom recording for now, all right? And that's a little bit of the, tongue-in-cheek at times, and the behind the scenes that I'll offer about the podcast itself, and a little bit of humorous side, and frankly, the honesty that I hope we will develop with each other here. No pretense, no junk, garbage, fakeness. A lot of it, like this episode, I certainly have notes, but this being season 1, episode 1, will be an introductory episode, and it's just me laying it out to you. Who am I? What the show will kind of be about. A Seinfeld-esque type podcast, if you will, right? I mean, some months, again, at first, we're starting off slow, very low key, very low cost. And over time, of course, you and I will grow and build together, right? All right? Everybody has to start somewhere, correct? So again, thank you. Things will grow and expand, but it'll be kind of a Seinfeld-esque type podcast. Some months, first of the month, later, more often, as we grow, will be about some very serious stuff, and other times, nothing whatsoever at all, just some random musings. I love movies. We'll talk movies. I love music. We'll talk music sometimes. We'll sneak a guest in on occasion when we can fit it in. But of course, this is season 1, episode 1 again. This is really just an introductory. Obviously, there's not going to be anybody beating down the door to be on my podcast yet, although I have to say, in introduction about me before I get into my life in general, I am an author. Again, if you see the video raw feed, you can see my 2 internationally available books currently. I am the holder of more than 3 dozen copyrights, though, over the decades. So I am a writer, an author. I am also a podcaster before this. Shout out to Michael Gardner and the Savaged Unfiltered podcast show. Yes, the background, if you're seeing this raw, created by Shaky and Michael Gardner. Thank you to them for that, as well as probably this show's logo and, image face that will be in place. These are going to be humble beginnings, not rushing into things. I know it's going to be low and slow building. So again, thank you so much. I know I'm repeating myself. I apologize, but I can't thank you enough for, with a bazillion choices, that you've decided to tune in. I really appreciate it. So yes, I'm an author. I'm a podcaster, co-host, Savaged Unfiltered. That'll be kind of the big show, the adult show. This is kind of just the child offspring for now, my show. And there will be growing pains. I'm going to give this to you raw and, as the parent show kind of says, savaged and unfiltered as we go. Just laying it all out there on the fly a lot of times. Not a lot of post-production. Honest and raw. Me and you. All right. So, about my background: born and raised in Southeast Michigan, actually lived downriver of Detroit, a Detroit suburb, Wyandotte, Michigan. And even though I hate the winters, I still choose to stay here, family and friends and all that. As much as I hate winters, the four seasons are still really nice. I've been involved in politics since 1978. So I'm a political activist, which in part is what prompted me to write Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, my first internationally available publication. Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You came out in 2022, and it's my opportunity to expand my political base outward and reach more people. And yes, given the title, it's about terrorism. Obviously, you guessed that. But an important point is to know that it's not a book about death, but of life and living. These things I like to say about it. We follow Martin, a Detroit newspaper man, on his quest to write a book about terrorism. So it's a book within a book, which is, of course, an old, tried and true storytelling method. And along the way, following Martin, we go over life over death, hope over fear, faith over despair, love over hate, good over evil, individualism over collectivism, freedom over tyranny, family and friends, and life. And that's a lot of what this show is going to be about. There's a warning on the bottom of my TerrorStrikes.info webpage. All right, TerrorStrikes.info. You can check that out. Many deem me and my book controversial and upsetting, and it's meant to be. The book is meant to be, and I at times engage in hyperbole, yes, to be controversial, upsetting, maybe a bit shocking. Why? To make people think, right? We're not here for the sheeple. It's to get people out of their bubbles, to challenge your own and others' intentions, motives, own morality and mortality. So that's an important insight as to why I wrote the book and kind of about my background. I consider myself a ChristiTutionalist, trademark pending, okay? Christian constitutionalist. Yes, I belong to the Republican Party. Sorry, but all those other parties don't amount to anything. If we, as people on the right side of the political spectrum of the political aisle, are ever to amount to anything and do anything, we must be delegates and be involved with and coalesce our numbers, very much about individualism, not collectivism, but collectively in that sense. In that case, we must come together to exert our power and control to take back the Republican Party, make the Republican Party great again, if you will, return it to its platform, get it back from the rhinos and the CINOs, as I call them. So a lot of the show will indeed be about those kinds of topics. My other internationally available book is How to Write a Book and Get It Published, Hints, Tips, and Techniques. because I've written many books. There's only the two currently internationally available. All right, Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, all those places, obviously. Buy direct, TerrorStrikes.info/shop. Okay, so that book, obviously, title, How to Write a Book and Get It Published, Hints, Tips, and Techniques. While on other shows doing interviews to talk about terror strikes coming soon to a city near you, I would often be asked back to say and discuss things related to writing and publishing in general. And of course, after a dozen or so of those interviews, I went on Amazon and looked, and indeed, there is a bazillion books about how to put your book on Amazon using KDP services. But there aren't really any books that take you from concept to the actual writing. There's chapters on scene development, character development, the publication process. What are your realistic options? Lay out several of them. Post-publication, marketing and promotion, what to expect from reviews, things like that. And more all-encompassing, not just a guide though, because for those of you who aren't interested in writing and publishing your own book, think of how to write a book and get it published, hints, tips, and techniques, as a tell-all with, not a whole lot of name dropping, though.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ed Bondarenka, and I host Your American Heritage on Saturdays at 2 in the afternoon on this station. Your American Heritage is a show about the struggle we find ourselves in and how to react to it in the light of our biblical and American heritage. Listen to it while you're working around the house, the garage, cleaning the guns, walking the dog, driving, or just lazing around. Join me at 2 o'clock Saturdays here on Wham Radio, 1600 AM, 92.7 FM.
God bless America.
But instead, a behind the scenes of how an author, if you're an avid reader and have a bunch of books on your bookshelf, what did that person go through to get that book to where you could buy it and it's on your bookshelf? So it's kind of a dual purpose book. And as a reviewer, Ed Temple, said, that book is written more like a novel itself than a self-help guidebook. And that is, of course, by design. I didn't want a dry, technical how-to book, so that it could be for non-authors, people looking to publish. And let me take a brief, quick aside and go back to, again, this being season 1, episode 1, introductory episode. I am co-host of Savage Unfiltered, which I'll get into in a minute here. Thank you, Michael Gardner and Shaky, for the background. If you're seeing this on raw video, even though this will mostly be an audio-only broadcast. All right? But if not for them, this venture obviously wouldn't be happening. But I'm a co-host there, have been for about a year now. This will be a learning process for me, part of my raw and being honest and unfiltered with you side of this podcast. All right. There's going to be a learning curve as I learn and grow to become a host of my own podcast, sole driving force, having to carry everything except for an occasional guest that may come on to chat with and have a back and forth. So yeah, you know what? There might be some dead air times. Yeah, there may be some times that I mumble and I stumble and I don't get a word out right. And you know what? I'm not going to fix it. It's going to be left. That's the way it is. That's the way it's happening. You're getting it completely with all the blemishes, all the warts, right? Part of the being honest with the audience part of it. Now, again, back to me and what I've done, who I am, why this podcast isn't completely starting from scratch, just randomly deciding to start a podcast one day to throw out amongst the bazillion that are out there. Michael Gardner had the Patriot Angle podcast for several years. It's been rebranded as of a year and a half ago to be the Savaged Unfiltered podcast. And I am very happy, very proud. I was on Patriot Angle as a guest discussing terror strikes coming soon to a city near you. We hit it off. He had me back a few more times. So then he decided to invite me on to be co-host. And I had to think about it for like a fraction of a second because I'd always wanted to do a podcast. And knowing the hassle it is to do one's own podcast and build it and grow it, I leaped at the chance to be co-host, and I will continue to be co-host. And this show will kind of be the child offspring, and Savaged Unfiltered, the adult, full-throated, big production value podcast. Because again, this is going to be low-key, low-cost beginnings. There's no sense rushing in, just starting off and dumping thousands of dollars into this process. We will grow together. It will get better together. We will graduate to live streaming videos on Rumble and things like that later on as we grow. All right. So again, thank you for tuning in. Hope you'll hang in with me. We can grow together, expand as we go. A lot of the things that we will talk about on this show, again, could be movies, could be music, but given my political background, I write online articles for BeforeItsNews and also TheLibertyBeacon.com. And that last one, before I go further, here's the pivot part and the mumbling and the stumbling, leaving it all in. You're getting it as it happens. Honest, straightforward, not looking to put on airs with you that this is going to be some high polished show to start with. It's not. All right. But I used to also write for Red State, right, which is now part of Town Hall. Before that, I wrote for Grassfire. Doesn't even exist anymore. Freedom Works used to allow for articles. I used to put them up there. I am a former IT guy also. So I go back to the days of computers long before the internet. Back in the day, I've been putting articles online and available for people to read since the early 80s, back when we had the personal computer with the 300 baud dial-up modem, and you trade numbers to other systems that had a bulletin board system, a BBS they were called, and you dial in, of course, get the squawking sound as the modems connect. Most younger people don't know anything about that. And the computers would connect, and you chat, or you'd upload things, you'd download things, you'd interact in online games and things of that nature. Then, of course, the internet created mainly for the military, then expanded to the universities, and then became publicly available to what it is today. And so I just wanted to give you that bit of background to lead into where I drop a new article on a weekly basis every Saturday at TheLibertyBeacon.com. All right. And that will be a lot of the fodder for this show. We will discuss anything potentially, but probably mostly what articles did I drop, which means what's been happening of late to talk about. Like last week, there was Let's Settle the POTUS part of the primary, before too early discussion of VP slot, right? Some people, because Trump clearly, likely has it all sewn up, they're already talking about VP slots. Well, a lot of time between now and then. Let's get to the primary, see who's all in, let the voters decide. But indeed, unless Trump has some major meltdown, he's likely the prohibitive favorite and likely nominee, and a bunch of other people will be in posturing for VP or cabinet slots. The week before that, I wrote Megyn Kelly announces will no longer use preferred pronouns. Okay? Before that, honoring the fallen beyond Memorial Day. Not just our military, but Leos, all who serve and put themselves in harm's way for us. Honoring them, and it's not an anniversary, it's not a happy holiday, it's a somber, fond remembrance or commemoration of those who put themselves in harm's way for us to protect our security, preserve our freedom on more than just one particular holiday or not. Before that, why I, as a ChristiTutionalist, oppose the proposed fair tax scheme. All right. Now, yes, I can be for a fair tax, but a whole lot of things have to happen for me to be on board with that. And that article's before that, Title 42, this isn't the solution we're looking for, never was, article. And that was discussed previously on Savaged Unfiltered. So you can find Savaged Unfiltered on iHeart and Spotify and virtually everywhere else. Rumble, we are establishing a video channel there. There's not a whole lot of traffic there yet because we're just starting it, getting it going. And frankly, I prefer the video, so you see the interaction of host and guests and facial expressions. And, you know, I'm part Italian, so you'll see the hands waving and the arm movements of things like that. So that was discussed previously on Savage Unfiltered. You can find that episode. This coming week, which will, of course, be ex post facto by the time you hear this, Season 1, Episode 1 of this broadcast, is Left Always Ignores, We All Pay, the Natural Law of Unintended Consequences. All those pretend intentions they have or claim to have good intentions. Well, you know the saying, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. You shall be known by your fruits. I called myself a ChristiTutionalist, so you know I'm a Christian. You shall be known by your fruits, not your empty words, not your bullshit rhetoric online, empty promises. What did you do, and what did it do for or to people? Not what you hoped and thought and really, really earnestly wanted with your feelings. No, logic, reason, facts, results. Judged on the results of your actions. So that's an upcoming piece. It will be out on TheLibertyBeacon.com. I am at JLenardDetroit on most social media platforms, YouTube channel at JLenardDetroit, Rumble at JLenardDetroit, things like Truth and Getter and MeWe and Spreely and Retalk, all those 15 different platforms I'm on at JLenardDetroit. Twitter, of course, yeah, they suspended me. I'm still fighting. So you can't get a hold of a human at Twitter still, even though Elon took over, to try to get unsuspended. But most of the other platforms at JLenardDetroit. On TheLibertyBeacon.com, you could go into the search, Joseph M. Lenard. Again, it looks like Lenard. It's not French. It's Leonard without an O. Find the articles there. Plans. I plan to talk about the 13th Floor movie that came out in 1999, ranked choice primary voting. I've been for it for decades. Some of you may only know anything about it through the Charlie Kirk show, where he goes on and on and on about how Alaska screwed it up. And I wholeheartedly agree with him. Alaska screwed it up. And I'll be going into great detail in that and why it's not actually real ranked choice weighted voting primary, which has to be done in a closed primary situation only. Alaska messed it all up, threw it all together in a jungle election also at the same time. So it's a mess. It's a disaster. We'll be discussing that coming up. All right. I'm kind of running out of things to say here because, again, this being season 1, episode 1, there's not a whole lot to talk about yet. This is just meant to be an introduction of me to you and this show to you. So I will be bowing out here. This will be a very short-lived, short-run show. I can see I'm like only 25 minutes in. Other shows will go longer. But for now, this is Joseph M. Lenard. Again, thanking you because you've got so many choices for deciding to look in on this podcast. And I hope you'll stick with me. Hope you'll grow with me. Go to josephmlenard.us. Hit the contact tab if you want to contact me. If you got a suggestion for a show, I'm open for them right away. You know, there will be guests on occasion too, eventually. I'm saying we are because I'm used to being part of a team, but this is all me, only me to start with. Again, low key, low cost beginnings. All right. And there will be some fumbling and stumbling. And as we grow, no one's going to want to be on this show now. There's very little audience yet. I mean, that's just part of the honesty, right? Every podcast has to start somewhere, and you have to grow your audience. So, Joseph M. Lenard, signing off for now. Thank you. Take care, and God bless.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Lenard. Order today.